Hello everyone, I just went through the process of installing the custom firmware for the light control module on the Floatwheel V kits as well as the ADV1. I'm making this guide to help anyone who's struggling with that or needs to see what's going on. The first place I'd start is this PEV.dev website, which I'll link below. Super helpful, kind of explain the process, what changes are going to happen. I'd also watch this video from Surfdado. Super helpful. He's the one who really contributed a lot to this, so props to him. I'm just adding a little bit more detail and kind of what I did. So to do this, you're going to need a couple things. First off is the ST-Link itself. You'll want an ST-Link V2, which you can get on Amazon for like $10. It comes with some wires. They're female to female, but ideally you'd use female to males, which I'll explain later in the video. So those are DuPont female to male wires. And for convenience, you might want a USB-A extender because you have to be right next to your controller to do this because of how the ST-Link plugs in, just like a little USB drive. You'll want a computer, obviously, and tools to get into your board. So you're going to want to start by heading over to the Floatwheel Discord, and there's a section for the LCM. In LCM discussion, there's some files you'll need. Go to the pinned section at the top and download your firmware that you need. Right now, we're on version 2.2, but in the future, most recent one will be pinned. So download the one you need and then continue to look through. There's a lot of other helpful guides here. I'd look through, good information, but you're going to want to make sure to download the zip file from Dado. That's going to have the installation files we'll need. Go ahead and extract that. And then you want to make sure the LCM firmware that you downloaded, so the .hex, is in the same folder that you extracted. That's really important. Go in there, and there's a text file that's going to walk you through what to do. So go ahead and open that up. I have it on the ready. And first thing you're going to need to do is download the ST-Link software. So go ahead and copy and paste that in and go through their website. Go down to the software section. And I just did a guest account. They'll email you a link to the download. And fill that out. And then download the zip, extract, and install this. Throughout the installation, make sure you accept the driver installation that it prompts for you. Don't uncheck anything because that's going to be really important later. Then you're going to want to boot up the software you just installed, just called STM32 link utility. Okay, and so what I did was made sure to install the latest update of the firmware to my ST-Link, and I found it helpful to update firmware. So go to ST-Link firmware update and plug in to the USB just by itself. Click update. It's going to flash like this on the little LED, and for me this just helped to do right out of the box, especially if you're not using like an official one. So from there, go to Device Manager, load up, go down to Universal Serial Bus Devices, and you'll see STM32, ST-Link. That's encouraging. So you can just leave the utility minimized in the background, and now you're going to want to install Python. So go ahead and go back to the text file. There's a link to 3.7.9, which is the version we need. Go ahead and paste that. It'll download. And it's very important to note, on the first installation page, click Custom Installation. Go through the next page without clicking anything. And then on the second page, make sure you have add Python to environmental variables selected. So you'll see I click that here. That's very important, so click that and install. Some people have issues with downloading Python from that link. So some people try to do it from the Microsoft Store and have had luck with that rather than the direct download. But this ended up working with me. I did have some troubleshooting later, but I'll go through that. So after you get Python installed, the next step is to install PyOCD, which is handily, the command is right inside the text file, which you can copy. And I just pasted this in. It went through, looked like it was going good, but ended up saying permission denied. So I ended up closing command prompt, reopening it as administrator. I don't know if that's typical, but that installed PyOCD for me. Now at this point, it looks like it installed fine. There's a little note about needing to update pip, which I ended up doing later when things weren't working, but if it works for you how it should, it's fine to leave it how it is and move on in the guide. So the next part you want to do is take the firmware file that you downloaded and move that into the folder where the text file is. So go to your file explorer, like I did this at the start, but you can see it there, and it's very important to rename it just LCM.hex. So now you're going to want to do the actual physical wiring. So get into your controller box, whether you have a vkit or ADV1, and you're going to want to look for the part of the controller that is the LCM. That's usually on top. You'll see the buzzer, and in the case of this XRV, you can see it here. And you're looking for 4 pins that are labeled VCC, SWIO, SW clock, and ground. And your ST-Link probably comes with a couple wires, but those are female to female. And in this case, unless you're going to solder and strip those wires, you're going to want to pick up some female to male, because what you can actually do is hold the pins directly onto the contacts on the LCM, and just because this is not a permanent installation, you can just hold it there while you're programming and it's probably fine. So in this case, I didn't solder, I just put the pins right there. Now on the ST-Link itself, you'll want the V2 version, which you can get on Amazon for cheap, and you'll see a graphic on the front side that shows which pin is what. And on the left side of the little graphic, there's a white bar that represents the dead space in plastic to show you like the orientation. So in this case, we're using pins 2, 4, 6, and 8, and you want to make sure SW clock goes to SW clock, SWIO goes to SWIO, ground to ground, and VCC is 3.3 volts, not 5 volts. Now the order that they're in on the ST-Link is not the same order that's on the LCM, so you're going to want to, you can't just have the wires in the same order on both. You'll have to swap them around and double check everything before you go ahead and plug everything in. So here's a terrible zoomed in image of what the XRV looked like. When I was programming, I had my buddy put a little bit of pressure on the pins there to make sure they have contact. Dado's video shows this a little bit clearer, so I definitely go ahead and watch that one as well. But you can see what we're working with here. Just have the wires go back to the ST-Link, and when you plug it into your computer, make sure that the Vesc is not turned on. In fact, in this case, I removed it from the board. It doesn't need to have power at all. So make sure the board's off, and when you plug it into the USB, LEDs are going to light up. That's fine. That shows that you at least have your VCC and ground in the correct orientation. And then this is where I started to have issues. I tried to run the bat file, which I'll show you in a second, and it said it couldn't find the ST-Link and it needed lib-USB drivers, so I looked around there. My ST-Link was showing up in Device Manager, so I was a little bit perplexed why I couldn't find it. Looked around for different drivers, looked around in Discord, and I suggest you guys do the same. What ended up fixing it for me was I realized that I had more than one version of Python installed on my laptop from doing other stuff with Python, and so I uninstalled the versions that were not the ones specified in the text file, which is 3.7.9. So I uninstalled those, and then I had to reinstall PyOCD, and after doing that, if I ran the PyOCD list command, it would show up as my ST-Link 32 was there, so I knew it was working. Plugged everything back in, double checked my wiring, and I ended up running the bat file, and everything worked super smoothly. So at this point, put it back together, plug stuff in, and now to actually configure the LEDs, if you're using Float, you go to the LEDs section of Float config and scroll down and make sure you have it set to external module. And then the two settings you can really change is the brightness when idle, and you can also set the brightness for when you're actually writing. And then if you're using refloat, you go to the specs tab and set the LED type to external, and then similar settings to float are in the LEDs tab. So I hope this guide was helpful. This is somewhat new to me, so if I mess something up, let me know. But otherwise, yeah, good luck. If you have issues, reach out in the Floatwheel Discord. They're super great there. And float on.